You think you're choosing. You think you're in control. You believe the version of yourself you've built, the one who knows what they want, who's learning, who's grown. But here's the uncomfortable part. You're not deciding, you're repeating. Think about the last argument you had, the one where you said something you didn't mean to say, the one where your voice came out sharper than you wanted. You felt it happen. You even told yourself to stop, but you didn't. And afterward, you asked yourself why. Why did I react that way? Why do I always do this? Now think about the last relationship that didn't work. Not the surface reason, the real one, the pattern underneath. The way you chose someone who made you feel needed or invisible. The way you stayed too long or left too early. The way it felt familiar, even if it hurt. You tell yourself you're different now. You've changed. You know what you want. But the script keeps running, and you keep reading from it. Here's what's happening. Beneath everything you think you're deciding, beneath your goals, your preferences, your carefully constructed identity, there's something older, something that learned how to survive before you learned how to think. It's not a flaw. It's not weakness. It's the way your mind protected you. When you were young, your mind didn't have the luxury of philosophy. It had one job: figure out how to be safe, figure out how to be loved, figure out how to avoid pain. And it did. It built a system, a set of patterns, rules you don't remember writing. If being quiet kept you safe, you learned to stay quiet. If being helpful made people stay, you learned to become indispensable. If anger was the only thing that made people listen, you learned to use it. These weren't choices. They were solutions, and they worked. But here's the problem. The system doesn't update. The part of you that formed these patterns, it doesn't care that you're an adult now. It doesn't care that the threat is gone. It doesn't care that you're trying to change. It only knows one thing. This worked before. Do it again. So you do. You pick the same kind of person. You react the same way under stress. You make the same promise to yourself that you'll be different next time. But next time feels exactly like last time, because you're not choosing, you're repeating. And the worst part? You don't even notice, because the repetition feels like you. It feels like personality, like preference, like who you are. You say, I'm just not good at being vulnerable, or I've always been this way, or this is just how I am in relationships. And you believe it, because it's easier to believe you're choosing a life that fits you than to realize you're living a script written when you were too young to know what you were writing. There's a concept in depth psychology. It suggests that most of what we call self, most of what we think we're deciding, is actually a response, not to the present, but to the past. The psychologist who explored this called it the unconscious, not the mystical unconscious, not the symbolic one, the functional one, the part of you that acts before you think, the part that repeats what worked, even when it doesn't work anymore. He said we live from the inside out, not from clarity, but from patterns we can't see. And most people spend their entire lives believing they're authoring their choices, when really they're performing a role they inherited. Here's an example. You meet someone new. You feel drawn to them. You tell yourself it's chemistry, it's attraction, it's fate. But then, months later, you notice something. They need you in the exact same way someone else needed you, or they withhold in the exact same way someone else withheld, or they leave in the exact same way someone else left. And you realize you didn't choose them because they were right. You chose them because they were familiar, because some part of you, beneath awareness, recognized the script and said, I know this one. This is what makes change so difficult. You can't fix a pattern you can't see. You can't choose differently if you don't know you're choosing from memory. Most people try to solve this by thinking harder, by setting better intentions, by making lists, by promising themselves they'll be more aware next time. But awareness isn't enough, because the pattern doesn't live in your thoughts. It lives deeper, in the part of you that acts before you think, in the part that already decided before you walked into the room. The truth is this. Most of your life isn't happening in the present. It's happening in the echo. You're reacting to a feeling you had when you were 7, or 12, or 17. You're trying to solve a problem that isn't there anymore. You're protecting yourself from a threat that ended years ago. But the body doesn't know that. The nervous system doesn't know that. It only knows. This feeling, I've felt it before. And last time, this is what I did. So you do it again, and again, and again. Until one day you look around and realize your life looks exactly like the thing you were trying to avoid. And here's where it gets worse. You start to wonder if maybe this is just who you are. Maybe you're drawn to chaos because you need it. Maybe you sabotage because deep down, you don't think you deserve better. Maybe the pattern isn't something happening to you. Maybe it's something you keep choosing. But that's not quite right either, because choice implies awareness, and you can't choose what you can't see. What you're actually doing is something stranger. You're searching for something that felt unfinished, something that hurt in a way you never processed. And every time you recreate the pattern, every time you pick the same person, react the same way, feel the same disappointment, you're trying to rewrite the ending. You're trying to make it turn out differently this time. You're trying to prove that if you just do it right, if you're just good enough, smart enough, lovable enough, the outcome will change. But it never does, because the problem you're trying to solve isn't in the present, it's in the past. And the past doesn't change no matter how many times you reenact it. There's a reason therapists talk about the repetition compulsion. It's the tendency to recreate the past, not because you want to, but because some part of you is still trying to master it, still trying to fix it, still trying to make it turn out differently this time. It's like watching someone play the same level of a video game over and over, convinced that this time, they'll get it right. But they keep hitting the same obstacle, making the same mistake, dying in the same spot, because they never stop to look at what they're actually doing wrong. But it never does, because you can't fix the past in the present. You can only repeat it, unless you see it. And seeing it is the hardest part, because it requires you to sit with something deeply uncomfortable. The possibility that you're not as in control as you thought, that the version of yourself you've built, the one you defend, the one you believe in, might not be the one making the decisions. It requires you to question everything you thought was just you, your preferences, your type, your triggers, your boundaries. All of it might just be the pattern in disguise, dressed up as personality, as choice, as identity. It requires you to ask, how much of my life is mine? And how much of it is just the same sentence, said over and over in different words? Most people never ask that question, because the answer is terrifying. The answer is, most of it. Your career might be a repetition. Your friendships might be a repetition. The way you handle conflict, the way you rest, the way you celebrate, all of it might be playing out a script you wrote before you knew what a script was. And the strangest part? The pattern doesn't just shape what you do, it shapes what you notice, what you ignore, what you remember. It's like wearing glasses you forgot you put on. Everything you see is filtered through the pattern. So of course the world keeps confirming what you already believe. Of course people keep treating you the way you expect. Of course the same things keep happening. You're not seeing reality, you're seeing the repetition. But here's the strange thing. Once you see the pattern, once you recognize the script, something shifts. Not immediately, not all at once. But there's a moment, a small one, where you feel the pull to repeat and you hesitate. You don't choose differently yet. You just notice. You just think, I've done this before. And that noticing, that tiny gap between impulse and action, that's where everything changes. Because you can't change what you can't see. But once you see it, once you recognize the pattern repeating, you have something you didn't have before. A choice, not to fix it, not to solve it, just to see it. And in seeing it, you become a little less automatic, a little less scripted, a little more awake. The pattern doesn't disappear. It doesn't magically stop pulling you. But now there's distance, a sliver of space between the trigger and the response, between the feeling and the action, between who you were and who you might become. And in that space, small as it is, there's possibility. You're not deciding, not yet, but maybe. For the first time, you're starting to notice what you've been repeating, and that's where it begins.